Hello and welcome to episode 53 of the Footy with Fletch podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by Hawthorn AFLW player Mackenzie Eardley. She was selected by Hawthorn with pick 6 in the 2022 AFLW draft. Hello Mackenzie, thanks for joining me. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries at all. And to sort of get into it first, how did you first sort of fall in love with footy?
Well, I grew up surrounded by football. Both my brothers played and my dad coached them. So I spent weekdays and weekends at their trainings and games. So I was surrounded by it from a pretty young age. And then once I got to the age of 12, I finally had a girls' league created in my area down on the Mornington Peninsula. So my mum actually let me play because she wouldn't let me play with the boys. So she said that I could finally play with the girls. So yeah, I just fell in love with it ever since.
And you also played netball growing up. What was that sort of like for you?
Well, I love netball. Netball was my number one passion for many years. And I guess it kind of came down to a point where they were both getting quite full on when you play both at a high level. There's definitely certain expectations that you have to meet in both sports that I guess was very hard to do at that point when I was also juggling year 12 during COVID. Um, so I think it got down to a point of which sport had the most opportunity for me at that point in time, and football was the answer. I was coming into my draft year, so that was kind of the immediate opportunity that I kind of had to take. And I knew that if football didn't work out, netball would always be there.
And how hard was the decision to choose footy over netball for you?
Extremely hard. I found it very difficult. I always loved netball, and growing up, I always dreamed of playing for the Aussie Diamonds and doing all of that. So I guess when you kind of have to give up on that dream to pursue something else, it's definitely tough and it took some adjusting. But yeah, I couldn't be happier with the fact I chose football.
And then you played with the Dandenong Stingrays in the NAB League for 3 years. What was it like to join that program?
It was an incredible experience joining that program. I couldn't be luckier that they were in my region. I loved my time there for all the years I was there. When I first went in, it was quite tough. I was only 15 or 16, so I didn't have any experience at elite football really. And going in there, it was a whole new level of work that I had to put in for my football. And I was lucky enough that in that preseason, I put in enough effort and work to get selected for all the games that we played that year. So, yeah, it was definitely a challenging thing, but I've made so many lifelong friends from it. And obviously, that's helped me expand my coaching career as well.
And we'll get into your coaching career a little bit later as well, because that is just fantastic. But were there any particular highlights for you from your time at the Stingrays?
There's definitely a few moments that I think about. Definitely my final year being named captain or co-captain of the side was something that I was shocked by. It wasn't something I expected. So getting that acknowledgement for what I was putting into the club was definitely pretty worthwhile and amazing. And then yeah, I guess just all the kind of games we won throughout that period. Obviously, we lost the grand final in my final year, but getting to play and win alongside some of my closest friends and really develop my football, they were the biggest memories for me.
And in your draft year, you also made the NAB League Girls Team of the Year and were a part of the Under-18 All-Australian team. What was that like for you?
It was definitely interesting. We had to go into a few camps. And during those camps, I was actually injured, so I didn't get to play the game. But it was awesome being around other draftees or potential draftees at that time that were all with the same common goal of getting drafted, getting into that AFL level. when you get around those people, it just makes you more determined and work harder because you know that they're all there fighting for the spot that you want as well.
You sort of touched on co-captaining the Stingrays, but what did you sort of, I guess, learn from that role?
I think from that role, I learned that everyone's very different. I think like when you're captaining a side, it's very important that you understand the players that you're leading. There's players that respond well from being told what to do. There's players that respond well from being shown what to do. Um, and then you have to establish relationships with players before you can start, you know, thinking that you can lead them. Like, yet they have to have your trust and respect as well. So that was a big thing I learned, and that was something I had to gain as well over the rest of the preseason and into the season.
And was there a particular point in time where you thought that you were a chance of, I guess, getting drafted in your draft year?
Well, it's definitely something that's talked about for like even that pre-Christmas block of preseason before we went into the actual year itself. There's always talk, always media about it. They start making potential draft lists and things like that. So I guess there's always talk about it. I had conversations with my coach, Nick Cox, about it. But obviously nothing's set in stone until you show up that next year and start playing games. So I guess it wasn't until the back end of the year when I started interviewing with AFL clubs that I thought that I was a chance to really get picked up and yeah, get into that AFLW space.
And which clubs interviewed you in the lead up to that draft?
I had a fair few. Um, Most Victorian clubs I interviewed with. And there was a few that I went back for second interviews with and tours around the clubs as well.
And was there a particular club from the interviews that sort of stood out to you?
Well, lucky for me, Hawthorn. um, ever since, like from the first interview, I was lucky enough to have our current midfield coach, Keegan, and our forward coach, Mitch Cashin, in my interviews. And obviously, Mitch was list manager at the time. So he obviously ran that, and they were just so warm and inviting, and they just made you really feel like they wanted you for the person you are, not just the player you are. So yeah, I definitely am so grateful that yeah, I got to end up at the club that I really felt connected to at the time.
And obviously, you were selected with pick six in the 2022 AFLW draft. Did you sort of imagine or expect that you would get selected so early on?
Well, I was invited to the night at Marvel Stadium, so I had a slight feeling that I'd probably go higher than top 20. Um, but yeah, pick six is incredible, and I was very shocked when my name was read out. I had no idea. I was expecting that like late teens, so when I got the call at pick six, I was a bit shocked. And it all happens at once. It's all one big quick process. Once your name's called out, you're up on stage and then you're out doing media. So it's, yeah, pretty full on.
And what is it sort of like, I guess, when you're drafted to then go straight out and do media, photo ops, interviews, etc., etc.? It must be, I guess, if you're not used to it, a bit overwhelming.
Definitely. Yeah, I hadn't really done any media prior to that, not to that level anyway. So when they drag you out and they go, oh, we got to get these photos, do these interviews. And then once all the draft picks were picked, we all went out onto the oval to get some more promo shots. Yeah, I think we were out there for maybe an hour to 2 hours getting media. And it's just a very long time. But yeah, it was definitely fun. And I got to connect more with Jazz and Charlotte and Bridie, which was amazing. But yeah, it's definitely a long process and was very overwhelming for someone that's never done it really before.
And you sort of mentioned some of the players that you were drafted alongside: Jazz Fleming, Charlotte Bascarin, Bridie Hipwell, Emily Everest, just to name a few. What was it like to be drafted alongside those players?
Oh, amazing. When Jazz's name was read out for Hawks and then my name was read out and then we just kept hearing Charlotte and Bridie, it was just made you happier and happier every time someone got read out. And once we got to the club, it was like this little core group. I think there was seven of us or eight of us, and it just felt right. Like we were just all together and we connected straight away. And we just all knew that if we, work hard together, we could take this club to very special places. And I think that's what really bonded us. It wasn't just an already established club, so we were helping build the club from the start. So yeah, I couldn't be luckier that I was definitely drafted with them.
And you played in the Hawks' inaugural AFLW match at Marvel Stadium against Essendon. What was the atmosphere in that game like, given that there were over 12,000 people in the crowd?
That was amazing. It was truly one of the most amazing parts of sport I've been a part of. Running out, it was also Caitlin Ashmore's 50th game, so there was a big banner for her. But yeah, running out with the team, just looking around, seeing all of the crowd, everyone in the seat just watching you. It's so different to just a game at, Frankston or anything like that. It's just a completely different atmosphere. And then seeing like when I was doing warm up and seeing my friends and family in the crowd, and they're all sitting around a bunch of people. Yeah, it's crazy and just loud. You could hear people all the time. The crowd was going off, and yeah, it was just amazing, and it just produced such a high level of football as well.
And during your first season, you dealt with a couple of injuries, dealing with a wrist and knee injury. How frustrating was it to deal with those two injuries?
I think being in my first year, I kind of knew that I'd come with some interruptions in that sense. Being a taller player too, it was kind of expected that I'd probably run into a few things potentially. So when they happened, yeah, it's frustrating initially, but I guess so, like you kind of have to just be upset for probably 24 hours and then move on from there, focus on getting ready for the next game. And yeah, rehabbing yourself. So obviously when I did my hand, it was a bit different. It was towards the end of the year, so I kind of knew that my season was done. I would be playing the last two games. But yeah, it was definitely upsetting at first, but you learn to move on and you have to be there for the team.
And you've played 16 out of a possible 20 games so far. What has it been like to play so many games in 2 seasons?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's full on, like playing that many games. I mean, you kind of look back and it doesn't feel like I've played 16 games at the same time. But yeah, all the games that I've played, as much as the win-loss balance, it probably isn't what we want it to be. Um, I still wouldn't ask for anything else. It was a credible team to run out with alongside. And I think we have a potential to play a very special brand of football that yeah, it'll be great in the years to come.
And then last year you played 9 games, averaging over 9 disposals, 3.6 tackles, and over 2 marks per game. What did you make of your second season in the competition?
I definitely think that it was an improvement from my first. I think I understood the game a bit better, the pace of the game. But yeah, it was still adjusting to that role of being a key defender. Obviously, I was still 19, so playing against some of the top key forwards in the comp that have had much more experience than me. It was a new challenge that I was definitely ready to take. But I think I've learned a lot from last year. So going into this year, I'm more set on what I'd need to do.
And one of my favourite moments from your AFLW career to date would be that rundown goal-saving tackle down at GMHBA Stadium. Can you talk me through that tackle and what was running through your head at the time?
Funny enough, the girl that I tackled was my friend from Vic Country. So I actually knew her. So I think that had a little bit to do with it. When she was in front of me, I kind of knew like I had the speed to get her, that, when I run as fast as I can get her. And then I knew I wouldn't let her kick a goal on me. So I had to just really chase her down. Um, and yeah, I guess you just have to grit the teeth and go for it, because what's the worst that can happen? She runs out on you. So I just had to go for it. And yeah, the tackle just naturally comes. I've always been a decent tackler, like with my technique. So I'm never really worried about, how I tackle, because I know that majority of the time I'll do it safely.
And what do you think are some of for some people who might not know, what would be some of your key attributes of your footy?
Definitely my athleticism is up there. I'm 183 centimeters tall, I think. Um, but I'm very agile. I have a really good vertical jump, which helps me in aerial contests, getting around the ground, my speed. They're probably my top things, and just my ability to read the game off halfback. It's definitely challenging, but yeah, over the years, and my brother was a backman, and my so was my dad. So I've just learned over the years how to read the game really well. And probably a lot of people would say my long kick is something that is definitely a key aspect of my game.
And who has been the toughest opposition player, opposition forward that you've played on?
Um, I'd probably say Anya Tai from Fremantle. She just was so unpredictable. Being Irish, she just has that nature about her. I know that from Aileen Gilroy and Anya McDonough in my team. So she's just very unpredictable in what she does. And yeah, it's hard to use football IQ to kind of figure it out because she'll literally just throw surprise after surprise with you, and yet you don't know what you're going to get every time.
And it's 30 days away from the start of the AFLW season. How has pre-season training been so far?
It's been a step up. It's been really tough, but so enjoyable at the same time. Like we are having the most fun getting out at training, and we can really see where the team's going, and hopefully we're getting an idea and a glimpse of what our football's going to look like this year. And yeah, it's really exciting to see what it's going to look like, and hopefully we can pull that against Essendon as well in 2 weeks in match sim.
And last week, a new look leadership group was announced with Emily Bates named as captain. Eliza West will be her vice captain, then Tilly Lucas, Rod, Jenna Richardson, and Jazz Fleming rounding out the leadership group. What is it like to have this new look leadership group, and how exciting is it for you and the club?
It's incredibly exciting. It's a group of players on our team that just work harder than anyone else. They're so determined to win, they're competitive, but they also just have built relationships with all of us individually that makes them really special. And I can really see our group as a team growing under them, and they lead from the front. Like we know on game day, they're the ones that are going to go the hardest. They're the ones that are going to really get into the competition. And when we need to be picked up, if things aren't going right, they'll do it. So it's definitely an exciting group. And being led by Emily Bates is, incredible. She's an incredible human. And yeah, she definitely deserves that role. So can't wait to see her excel in that.
And now to your coaching career. Last year, you helped out with the Stingrays under 16 and under 18 girls' sides. What did that role sort of entail for you?
So most of the role was around being at trainings, and doing more developing coaching. So working on ruck craft, marking craft with certain players. And then it kind of just developed into a more full on role, which I absolutely loved. So being at more trainings, being involved in more drills, really educating the players on what it was like to be an AFL player and what the standards were in that space. So giving the under 18 girls that were in their top age draft year a glimpse of what they would have to do if they were going to be drafted at the end of the year. So, yeah, it was definitely an incredible experience. And coaching under Josh Moore was, yeah, great. He's an amazing person, and I'm lucky to know him personally. So, yeah, he made it really easy for me to come in and help the girls. And it was good to coach some of the girls that I now play with as well.
And you were also the head coach of the Dandenong Stingrays under 16s boys program this year. How did that opportunity come about and how did you find it?
Yeah, so after finishing up with the girls, I kind of played my season in the AFLW. I was kind of unsure of what I'd do next for coaching. And then Nick Cox, who was my under 18s coach when I was going through the pathway, he approached me and pretty much just asked if it was something I would be interested in. And he wanted me to do it. So I guess I kind of felt like if he had this faith in me, then maybe it's something I should do. It's a bit daunting, being head coach, but also being head coach of boys program. I'm only, 5 years older than them. So it's not like I'm a lot older and I'm a girl coming in. It's a bit, some people could see it not right. But yeah, the boys were amazing. They made it so easy to come in. They just wanted to learn and get better at their football. And just play games. So they were really competitive. They trained hard, and I was lucky enough to have 9 of them in the Vic Country squad, and then one make All Australian. So those little moments I can also look at and be proud that I had a little bit involved with that.
And have you sort of always had an interest in coaching?
It's not really something I wanted to do when I was younger. I think definitely in the past 2 years it's kind of grown. Um, my current coach, Steph Binder, in the back line, she coached me in the back line Stingrays in my first and second year. So she kind of helped me see that a female could do it as well. Up until that point in the football space, I'd really only had men's coaches. So having a female coach there kind of showed, oh, like this is something women can do too. Um, and then, yeah, in the past 2 years, I think just being presented with the opportunities. At first, it was just me wanting to pass down my knowledge to, the younger players coming through the pathways. But I think as I got into it, that I realized that it was something I could actually do as a career post playing.
And just finally as well, you're studying at university. What are you currently studying and how have you found it?
I'm studying a Bachelor of Exercise Sports Science and Nutrition Science. It's different. I took a gap year after school, so I hadn't studied for a while. So it was, yeah, definitely difficult to get back into studying. It's definitely not my thing, but I'm trying. I'm getting through it slowly, but yeah, I'll get it through it.
Well, thank you so much, Mac, for joining me on the podcast today and all the best of luck for the upcoming season.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me.